Okay, we're going to jump episode up on the wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a really cool review for you guys. A bit of actually a preview from Nordic Marine Instruments, or NMI. And essentially, you know, this is a brand built around that the founder's native Danish culture and his passion for high-end everyday tool watches. NMI was created for those who have an affinity for design and proportions, as well as an appreciation for fine materials and craftsmanship. Now, this is their second watch, and it is, you know, entering this really competitive and very cool space of the everyday adventure watch. Some key characteristics and design: when you're looking for something that you can wear every day, of course you're going to want that sporty, legible, and tough blend, and you're going to want it to be relatively balanced. And I think here you do get something that is definitely hits all three of those points. Now, in terms of the model, this is their SØVÄRN, and this is in the full domain or full lume peach dial, and this is a pre-production prototype. And it is the second again in their collection after launching their diver. NMI are looking to roll out, you know, I think a very versatile everyday option. And you know, as much as we do love our dive watches, I think stuff like this definitely can be a little bit underappreciated because it does offer that extra level of versatility while still offering a whole bunch of capability. Now, another difference for this secondary release is going to be that there actually won't be a Kickstarter campaign. These are going to be launched directly for pre-order come early June of 2024. You guys are going to be able to get these for $549 at full retail, and there's also launch special discounts available for those who register for those release updates via email, so definitely check that out. With that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, so one thing I do want to mention right off the bat: this is marketed as a 39mm watch. I get 39mm at the bezel and about 40mm on the case. So just to get that out of the way, it is, for me, a 40mm watch. I will say, though, it does wear smaller. The nice thing is it has very dialed in proportions, but I will say, the scale wise, for those of you who might be looking for something a little bit larger, I think this could be a really, really cool option, especially since they went modern and they added crown guards. I think it's a really nice aesthetic, but I did want to throw that out there because, you know, anytime there are measurements, I always will remeasure with my own calipers and give you guys the details. Now, in terms of the thickness, it's only 10.8mm thick and 48mm lug to lug, all stainless steel, brushed with some very nice high polished brushing there. Ooh, I mean, just there's a little bit of my fingerprints on there, but you guys can see, really, I mean, this thing is crispy. Check that out. Beautifully done. I love the case lines on here. Very reminiscent of their dive watch that they released, which was a looker as well, and also had a very interesting dial here. Of course, you guys are going to notice that it does have that sandwich dial, but it's also a fully lume dial, so a bit of kind of a reverse idea on your typical execution for sandwich dials. Now, the crystal is a flat sapphire, and I think they nailed that, so you're going to get a nice thin profile, and of course no distortion when you get down, but you will notice that there is a nice AR coating there, which is fantastic. Also, screw down crown, which is great, so that's going to be a confidence inspiring 10 atmospheres or 100 meters of water resistance, so you know that'll be well engaged. And the back, although solid and quite slim, check that out, guys. Look at how flat that lays. Very, very cool. It's going to have the Miyota 9015 in it, so it's going to have a 42-hour power reserve beating at 4 Hertz or 28,800 vibrations per hour in terms of that beat rate. Getting into the dial, guys, this matte sandwich dial is very cool, and it does have a color match date at 6 o'clock. You're also getting nicely polished hands. In this case, of course, with the style and the colorway, these are going to be coated to match, those kind of darker cutouts there. But the one thing I do want to point out is check that out. Nicely capped hand stack there. So very cool. I just love to see that. Not enough brands do that. It really got brought to my attention by Grand Seiko, and it's something that they don't even do on every one of their watches, but every time I see it, I appreciate it. It's just that little extra level of finishing and detail. Now, getting into the dial, it actually is a full BGW9 Superluminova dial. It does, of course, have that color, that kind of peach color that is layered on top of it, but it just shines through. Again, 10 atmospheres of water resistance, or 100 meters. You have 20 millimeter lugs, everything solid. Female end link there, so nice drape in terms of the way that that's going to flow. Of course, the overall silhouette is going to be a little bit more flat, but I will say because of that, it also wears extra thin and feels extra thin, which is nice. You also do have quick release spring bars. You are getting screw in construction, everything solid, pretty well articulated, not fully articulated, but essentially these 3 links are one link effectively in terms of those pivot and articulation points. But good news is they're short enough to where it's easy to dial them in. And when you look at this, check it out. Yes, you do have a push button toolless micro adjust. So very cool system there. Very, very reminiscent of the ones you would find on RZE watches. But these are also, I believe, sister brands, which I think is very cool. So fully milled, guys. Even the buttons milled. And then, of course, the housing is milled. Everything's very clean. Let me actually give the clasp just a quick wipe so you guys can get a nice view of just how sharp this is. Nicely signed, guys. Look at that. Beautifully done. So very, very handsome. 5-position toolless micro adjustment there. So all you need, you don't necessarily need any half links because they're offered a wider range of those incremental micro adjustments. So with that said, let's actually get this piece on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, I think this wears really, really nicely. Check it out. Super flat. Look at that profile. Very clean, nice drape, definitely more industrial, a lot of nice angles and edges there, but I still think that it flows nice enough on the wrist. Of course, I do have a slightly larger than average size wrist at 7.5 inches, but it's also quite round and tall, so it's not like I have this really flat, accommodating wide wrist. And of course, if I do get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, you're going to notice that it's going to appear visually much larger than it actually is. So what I like to do is keep my wrist nice and low and then just tighten up the frame here so you guys can get still a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio. Check that out. Nicely centered there, guys. Very manageable at 48 millimeters lug to lug. And this one is meant to have a nice wide stance on it. So this, I don't know how well this would scale down. I know a lot of folks are tend to be moving towards the trends of smaller watches, but this isn't big. It's not oversized. I think it's just a nice kind of full-sized adventure watch. I think 40 millimeters with that 39 millimeter bezel is really smart. And then when you think about the dial proportions and everything like that, you do of course have those nice cutouts, kind of centralizing your view of the dial, which does help shrink it because there are some layers. It's not like it's this big, plain, empty, expansive dial. There are some nice contours and layers to it, and I dig that. Ooh, look at that. Ooh. I gotta say, the finishing on here, that undercut, that bevel, the bevel on the bezel, the signed crown, it's all just very, very clean and really unoffensive. So while not completely reinventing the wheel by any means, it still has a nice amount of pizzazz and just some originality, especially within this colorway. Of course, there are going to be some more toned down colorway options available, but I'm digging this one. So with that said, let's actually get get it off the wrist, set up for some Lume shots, the light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. All right, guys, wow. Very, very cool. Very, very bright. Check that out. I'm going to guess that with that overlayer is what's giving it that green hue, because you're seeing essentially blue Lume with that layer. I could be wrong. I might have been mixing up some of the specs with maybe one of the other models. Again, this is pre-production, but man, that looks really, really good. Check that out. Maybe if I even try to give it a little bit more shade with my hand. That is just infinitely legible, and some people really dig that, and you know, I think it's quite interesting. But one thing I always like to work in is a bit of a low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice with these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. I have to say the transitional lighting on here is very cool with this fully illumined dial that's actually colored instead of just being like a white dial. I dig that. Check that. Look at that. You can still see a bit of a day kind of green glow to it, and that transition is very cool as it goes to like more traditional kind of peach salmony color, and then it just transforms. So very cool. And one thing I do want to point out as well is, of course, the finishing on the bracelet. Look at the way the light just uniformly glides right over. Look at the deep just glossy reflective surfaces there, those high polished facets just looking fantastic. And then of course the bracelet, you know, and those nice flat satin portions. Very, very cool, and a whole lot of visual interest, and a lot of that has to do with the dial. Again, they're probably out of the group of the pre-production renders I saw. This is going to be one of the safer models, guys. Hopefully I'll be able to get some production units eventually on hand, but I did want to be able to share this with you guys, and big shout out to Nordic Marine Instruments as well as RZE for connecting with me on this piece to make sure that I kind of got dibs on it before it traveled on to everyone else. So very, very cool, guys. I'm digging it. Is it the perfect watch? No. Is it the most versatile? No. But you know what? It's a nice blend of standing out, having a very signature aesthetic, and then also being still quite versatile in terms of, you know, you don't necessarily have to have a special outfit to wear this. You don't even need to match that dial. It's just a really cool kind of neutral colorway that still has a really interesting pop and kind of dynamic nature in terms of its design. So guys, closing thoughts on the wrist, really sporty proportions with a clean and balanced layout. In terms of model variants, definitely check the site links for updates, options, and availability. In terms of comparable models, guys, a lot of competition within the expanding everyday outdoor adventure space, but this with its slightly larger size and choice to offer those crown guards, I think it does help this model stand out. Like so many other ones are just, you know, a variation on an Explorer. And this definitely takes it up a notch, and I think adds something to the genre. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of watches that are in this genre that I absolutely love. In this case, this one definitely goes more on the original side. So if you're like me and you like to adventure out every once in a while and just have something that looks a little bit different and just has a really signature aesthetic to it when you head out the door, I think this could be a fun one for you to use as your grab and go. So, bottom line for me, guys, this is well executed, thoughtfully designed, and also offers solid value. Again, full retail $549, so that's like the most expensive it's going to be. So, you know, if you like the look, you absolutely won't be disappointed with the quality, even at full retail price. Like, I think this thing is a good deal. I hope this brand continues to expand, just because I like how playful, how adventurous they are when it comes to their designs. And then, of course, they're offering very solid execution and build quality with some really, really impressive finishing for the price point. So with that said, let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please do a like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.
Bye.